When people hear the term serial killer, names like Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, and John Wayne Gacy usually come to mind. These criminals became infamous through media coverage, documentaries, and shocking court cases. But hidden behind all of them is a man whose crimes were even more horrifying. A man who operated for decades across the United States, leaving behind a trail of victims while staying almost completely unnoticed. His name was Samuel Little. According to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Samuel Little is considered the most prolific serial killer in American history. He confessed to killing 93 women between 1970 and 2005. Investigators confirmed dozens of those confessions, and many believe the real number could be even higher. How did one man kill for nearly 40 years without being stopped? This is the terrifying true story of Samuel Little. Samuel Little was born on June 7, 1940, in Reynolds, Georgia. His early life was marked by instability and neglect. Reports suggest his mother abandoned him at a young age, leaving him to be raised primarily by his grandmother. He later moved to Ohio, where his behavior became increasingly problematic. As a child, Little struggled academically and frequently got into trouble. He was arrested multiple times as a teenager for petty crimes, including theft and assault. This pattern continued into adulthood. Little drifted through life without a stable career or permanent home. He traveled constantly from city to city, often living on the margins of society. This transit lifestyle would later become one of the main reasons he evaded law enforcement for so long. He was difficult to track, difficult to predict, and easy to overlook. Samuel Little specifically targeted vulnerable women. Most of his victims were sex workers, women struggling with addiction, homeless women, women living in poverty. He intentionally selected people he believed would not receive immediate attention if they disappeared. This made his crimes especially difficult to investigate. Little often met women in bars, nightclubs, streets, or shelters. He approached them as friendly, harmless, and sometimes helpful. He offered rides, alcohol, drugs, or companionship. But once he isolated them, the outcome was often deadly. Little's preferred method was strangulation. He usually punched, beat, and strangled victims manually. Unlike firearms or knives, strangulation leaves behind fewer obvious clues. No loud noise. No murder weapon. Minimal forensic evidence. This helped him avoid detection for decades. In several cases, deaths were initially ruled as overdoses or accidents. His victims were often dismissed by the system, and Samuel Little understood this. He exploited it repeatedly. From the 1970s through the early 2000s, Samuel Little traveled across numerous states, including California, Texas, Florida, Ohio, Arizona, Mississippi, Louisiana, Kentucky. He left behind victims all over the country. Because police departments often operated independently, cases remained disconnected. A murder in California was rarely linked to a similar death in Texas. This was especially true before advanced national databases and DNA technology became common. Samuel Little benefited from this fragmentation. He was arrested many times throughout his life, but almost never for murder. His charges included theft, fraud, narcotics offenses, assault, violence against women. Despite his long criminal record, authorities repeatedly released him. The system saw him as a repeat offender, not a serial killer. This failure allowed him to continue killing for decades. In 2012, Samuel Little was arrested in Kentucky and extradited to California on narcotics charges. At first, this seemed routine. But investigators soon connected his DNA to 3 unsolved murders from the 1980s in Los Angeles. This was the breakthrough authorities had needed. In 2014, Little was convicted for the murders of 3 women and sentenced to life in prison without parole. For most killers, this would have been the end of the case. But investigators suspected something far larger. And they were right. While in prison, Texas Ranger James Holland interviewed Samuel Little. Initially, Little denied involvement in additional crimes. But eventually, he began confessing. And once he started, the confessions kept coming. Samuel Little admitted to killing 93 people. He described victims with chilling precision: hair color, clothing, locations, methods of killing, circumstances of their meetings. His memory was disturbingly sharp. Perhaps most chilling of all, Little drew portraits of many victims from memory. These sketches became essential tools in identifying previously unknown victims. Investigators used his drawings and confessions to reopen cold cases nationwide. Many cases matched his descriptions almost perfectly. Over time, law enforcement agencies across the U.S. confirmed dozens of his murders. This question continues to disturb investigators and psychologists. Why confess after decades of silence? Some experts believe Samuel Little enjoyed finally receiving recognition. Others believe he wanted control over his legacy. He showed little remorse, no genuine guilt, no empathy. He often discussed murders casually, almost as if describing ordinary memories. This emotional detachment was deeply unsettling. For Samuel Little, murder seemed almost routine. That may be what made him so dangerous. Samuel Little died on December 30, 2020, at age 80, while serving his sentence in California. He died in prison without ever standing trial for the full extent of his crimes. Even after his death, investigators continue working to identify victims linked to his confessions. Some families are still waiting for answers. Some victims remain unidentified. And some cases may never be solved. Samuel Little's crimes exposed major flaws in the justice system. His case highlighted how marginalized victims are often overlooked. It also demonstrated why national databases, DNA evidence, and interstate cooperation are critical in solving serial crimes. But perhaps the darkest lesson is this: Samuel Little was not a criminal mastermind. He did not rely on genius. He relied on invisibility. He exploited victims society ignored and gaps within investigative systems. And because of that, dozens of women lost their lives. Possibly many more. Samuel Little may be gone, but his story remains one of the darkest and most disturbing criminal cases in modern history. A chilling reminder that sometimes the most dangerous monsters are not the ones everyone fears, but the ones nobody notices. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time.